Hey guys, I'm Dave and welcome to the Trull Gallery. Today, we're going to figure out how to do the math for board feet. Before we jump in and learn how to calculate board feet, there's a few things we need to agree on. One is that woodworkers are interesting people and we don't measure our thicknesses in inches, but in quarters. A 1-inch board is considered 4/4. If it was an inch and a half, it'd be 6/4, and 2 inches at 8/4, and so on. Another thing we need to know is the difference between linear feet and board feet. If you buy your stock by the linear foot, the thickness and width is pretty irrelevant. You're paying so many dollars per linear foot of that particular board. Board feet is based on the cubic mass of the board. If that makes sense, but we'll jump into that in a minute. The other thing to consider is the board itself. Is it rough sawn? Is it surfaced all sides? Has it been skip planed? All of these kind of affect how useful it is right out of the store and how much work you have to do to get ready to make a piece. If you buy something that's surfaced on all sides, which is what you usually get at the big box stores, you're going to pay a little bit more because somebody had to run all those processes. The downside is, even though when it left the mill it was square and flat, they're usually not square or flat or stable by the time you get them. There's twists and cups and bows and all that good stuff. If you buy your boards rough sawn, then you have to do all that work to clean it up, but you have more control over the final product, and it's more likely to stay stable because you're going to mill it and then assemble it into something, and it's not going to sit around gathering moisture and twisting and cupping and all that, in theory. So with all that said, let's look at a couple of examples and figure out how to do this board foot thing. If we look at our first board here, it's an inch thick, 6 inches across, and 12 inches long. So to figure out the board foot of that, we take each of these dimensions and multiply them across. 12 times 6 times 1, 72. I'm not a math genius. I can just do those simple ones. That doesn't give us our board feet. That's just our starting point. So the next thing we need to do is take 72 and divide that by 144, and that's going to give us half of a board foot. So the mass of this piece of stock is a half a board foot. If we do this with a different size board, say it's 3 inches thick by 6 inches by 12, the math is the same. 12 times 6 times 3 gives us 216. Divided by 144 is 1.5 board feet. In reality, you're never going to buy small stock like this. You're going to buy longer pieces and multiple pieces. So let me show you a tool that I used where I can list each of the pieces, the quantity, the length, width, and thickness. I also add a little bit of extra because you're going to have some waste. You're going to be checks and things you're cutting out. Plus, it's always good to have a little bit extra so you don't have to go back to the store at the last minute. Or if you're like me, you make the occasional mistake, you'll always have that piece kicking around that you can correct your mistake. There's another way to look at this if you work in feet more than inches. Again, if we have a piece that's an inch thick, 6 inches wide, but 8 feet long, the math is similar, but a little different. We're still going to multiply the numbers across. 8 times 6 times 1, and that's going to give us 48. Again, that's still our base number. Now, instead of dividing by 144, we're going to divide by 12 because we've changed one of our units of measure from inches to feet. So 48 divided by 12, 4 board feet. So if you're buying larger stock, this is a good way to figure your math. Since I do my stock based on the pieces I'm needing for a project, I tend to keep everything in inches, and I'll explain why in the next step. Okay, I get it. Not everyone loves a good spreadsheet. Weirdos. Let me explain how I work, and later I'll see if I can find you an online shortcut. One reason I like the spreadsheet is it not only does my math, but it also works as a cut sheet once I get into the shop. I start by breaking the parts down by species. In this case, I just have some poplar pieces for an upcoming build. If there were multiple species, each would get its own section of the page. Let's work our way across the page. I start with the description, then the quantity I'll need, the length, the width, and the thickness. The length and width listed are the actual dimensions I need, but the thickness is rounded up to the most common wood thickness, in this case 1 inch or 4/4 stock. If you look at the formula bar near the top, you'll see the formula that does the magic for me. Just as before, it takes the length times the width times the thickness, but it also multiplies the number of parts I need. Those are all multiplied together, and the resulting sum is divided by 144. So if we look at the first line, I need just over 7 board feet for those long base pieces. Now that's the exact board feet I need, and it doesn't leave any room for checks or defects. To make sure that I don't run short, I take that board foot number and add some waste. Some people think 10% is fine, but I think 15% is probably safer. With that added in, our 7 board feet for the base pieces is closer to 8 board feet when you make sure that you have enough for waste. I also tally up my stock for a project, adding in the price per board foot. I copy the total board feet needed, in this case 26.63, and then multiply that by the material costs. I have $8 here, but I'm sure poplar is probably a bit less. If you look at the formula bar again, you'll see the formula I use is the number of board feet needed times the price per board foot plus 8% for tax, or in this example, $230.12. I did some surfing for board foot calculators, and there are several out there. The problem is the only ones I could find look just like this. They can only calculate one piece at a time. And while their calculations matched mine, you'll have to do this for each piece you need, and then add them all up, and you still don't have a cut list. Knowing how to calculate board feet is going to come in really handy, especially if you start to buy your materials from a mill or a hardwood lumber supplier. Just remember to add in a little bit of extra in your calculations. That way you'll have plenty of material in case you have some waste to work around. Whether you use a spreadsheet or you just jot your numbers down on the back of a piece of scrap wood, knowing this formula will make sure that you pick up enough stock for your project. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. Do you buy rough cut lumber? Do you just get whatever's available at the big box store? Drop in the comments below, let me know. And hopefully this formula will be helpful to you in the future. If you enjoyed this video, maybe share it with friends and give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, maybe it's time to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified each time I put out a new video. Not really sure what's coming up next, but it should be something interesting. So until then, have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.